It's the idea that philosophy and especially ethics also has a practical side to it. So to change the world, not only to theorize about it, which happened a lot in the past. For example, that may involve practical policy work. So often you are asked to sit on committees to advise, for example, the European Parliament or the European Commission or the World Health Organization, because they are all struggling and trying to get their heads around what the ethical and policy implications are of new technologies. And of course you can then withdraw and sit in the ivory tower and do more philosophy and study the deep problems, which you should, because otherwise you don't have anything interesting to say. But at the same time, I think, and that's a particular conception that I have and many colleagues fortunately also have, you also have an obligation to try to see how you can change the world, and that involves a lot of involvement in practice. And it requires a little bit of time. Comes with its own problems because you have to manage different portfolios. You have to study the problems in theory and more conceptually, and then also try to translate them to practice. Yes, I do think that there are differences between the two. It is very common now to look at the details of the technology. So, for example, to focus on a debate about safety or risk or bias or unfairness or exclusion of certain groups of people because they're not represented in the data sets that are used to train up these neural networks. And it's good that that type of discussion we should have, but it should not be forgotten that all of these technologies, both the data collection, the creation, and the training up of the neural nets, takes place within a larger socio-technical environment and in a political, socio-economic environment. So it's embedded, it's nested in that. And these are huge assumptions, for example, with respect to rule of law or to democracy or the political system that you have. So you need to take that into account when you think or situate your ethical problems, which are smaller problems, but they're sitting in a larger political, legal, socio-economic context. And of course we know that these contexts are slightly different. And or sometimes with other countries they are hugely different, and that needs to be taken into account. It's well understood that the way Europe thinks about privacy is different from the way China, for example, conceives of privacy. We still have to look at what Russia will come up with in terms of a strategy for AI, but it will also again be different. So also thinking about how society should be run is different. Even you could say the conception of human beings is slightly different, and that will be expressed in the way you apply the technology. So that may lead to critical dialogues and debates, or sometimes to more kind of intense debates. But I think there are notable differences, and we have to keep a dialogue going because the technology is too powerful, the stakes are too high to get bogged down in long-lasting conflicts. Well, when you hear the expression "as fast as possible," you always have to kind of ask, how important the speed is, right? So, being fast is not a value in itself; it's not intrinsic value. So, you have to. The Italians have an expression: "Who goes slow goes safe." Right, and so sometimes speed is not the thing that should be overruling what we do, what we think about, or making our plans. So sometimes it's of the utmost importance to be very, very fast. If you want to save someone from a burning building, you have to act fast. But I think there are other values that need to be taken into account, like safety, like fundamental rights that people have, and sustainability, for example. So how important is it to be to be fast? I think the most important thing to realize is that we have multiple values, and we want to serve them all, right? And we want to be as comprehensive as we can be. We want to serve as many values as we can serve, and speed enters into the equation, but we have to be really careful.